In this video, we will show you how to replace your front brake hose on this Honda Accord. This is part of the braking system located inside of your front wheel well. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we need to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done that, you can remove all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts and then the wheel. Now that we have the wheel out of the way, we have a nice clear view of our brakes and our front flex hose. To start removing the flex hose, we'll be making our way down to the caliper. On the caliper, you're going to find a bleeder screw. If you have a cover on there, go ahead and remove that cover. We'll give the cover a quick inspection, make sure it is reusable. It's always a good idea to reuse these or replace them. We'll continue on to loosening this screw right here. When we do so, fluid will come out, so make sure you're wearing hand and eye protection and you have a collection bucket under the area. Put my 10mm on here. Once you see a trickle of fluid coming out, make your way into the passenger compartment and depress your brake pedal all the way to the floor with a bar so it'll be held in place. It's important to mention, as we're depressing the brake pedal, you don't want to press it down, then release it, and press it again. You're going to get air in the system. I'll rest the bar against the front of the seat. Once it's secure, we can make our way back into that wheel well. In this area, confirm that there's no fluid coming out of the bleeder screw. If it's still trickling out, you don't have enough pressure on that brake pedal. I don't see any fluid coming out of here, so we'll close up this bleeder screw. We don't have to torque it. We just want to make sure it's snug so we can continue. There we go. Let's move along from there. We'll follow the flex hose all the way up to where it connects onto the body and onto the steel brake line. We'll clean this joint. Some parts cleaner, a little brush. Now we can move along to using a 10mm to loosen up this fitting. We'll use a flare end wrench so we're grabbing onto as much of the fitting as possible. While you're turning this, it's important to make sure you are not twisting your brake line. You might have to use a little penetrant. Once it's broken free, you can just continue on to an open end wrench. At this point, it's completely unscrewed from the flex hose. We'll pause right here and we'll make our way to this clip, pull that out, and you should be able to separate the flex hose from the brake line. Don't lift up on the line because you could potentially bend it in some way. To remove this, you can use a small prying device and carefully get in between the flex hose and the clip, or just use some pliers, grab onto the lip, and pull it out of place. Whatever works best for you. Once it's out, give it a close inspection. Take hold of the flex hose, give it a wiggle, and start drawing it down. Give your steel brake line fitting a close inspection. Make sure the threaded area is still in good condition and nothing's rotted or damaged in this area. If it is, it's a good idea to replace it. Let's follow that flex hose down to where it connects onto the steering knuckle bracket. Use a 12mm. Fully remove this bolt, give it a quick inspection, and then start it back in, just a couple threads. We want to hold this line in place. Looks okay. We only need a couple threads here. Now we can follow the flex hose down to where it connects onto the caliper. We'll use a 14mm. Loosen the banjo bolt. Keep in mind, fluid will come out of this area, so have your collection bucket under here. Before I fully remove this banjo bolt, I'll take hold of the other end of the flex hose and lift it up as high as possible. This should remove as much of the fluid as we can. Now we'll come back down here and we can start removing that flex hose from the caliper. Inspect the banjo bolt, make sure that you can reuse it. As for the gaskets, we're removing them and then we'll set them aside for recycling. Once you have that released from the caliper, we'll make our way back up to the bracket that holds the flex hose to the knuckle. Remove that bolt, and there it is, friends. With the flex hose out of place, it's important to pay attention along the back side of the caliper where the flex hose was. There should be some gaskets. It's going to look something like this. One on each side of that flex hose. It's common for the inboard one to be up against the caliper still. If so, just go ahead and pry it right out of place. Otherwise, go ahead and clean up the area. Never use parts cleaner inside of the port. Let's get ready to install our brand new front brake flex hose. Have a quick look at what would be the top portion of the flex hose. You'll find that it has a notched area. It's not a perfect circle. If you were to look at the bracket, you'll see exactly which way this flex hose needs to aim. We'll align that properly. As we bring it up into place, continue on with your brake line. We're going to be sliding that into the center of the flex hose. As we continue forcing the flex hose up, we also want to be turning the brake line into here. Be careful not to cross thread it. Just double check to make sure it is going in straight before we continue tightening. Let's snug it up. Just confirm it's nice and tight using a flare and wrench so I don't strip the end here. Now we can reinstall our metal clip. Make sure you have it in the proper position so that the tab is facing up. We'll slide this right in the groove along the top of the bracket. Go ahead and tap it in with a hammer. Double check to make sure it's completely secure. Now we can follow it to its mounting point on the steering knuckle. Let's get this in place. Torque that to 7.2 foot-pounds. Now we can start putting the flex hose onto the caliper, but before we do, we need to pay attention to the banjo bolt. It's common for the original gasket to be stuck up against the base of this bolt, and remove it. After that, give that banjo bolt a close inspection and make sure it is still reusable. If you were to accidentally leave one of these gaskets in place, you could double gasket, and that's going to cause a brake fluid leak. Take one of the brand new gaskets that you got with your flex hose. Slide it right onto that banjo bolt. Now we'll slide that straight on through the flex hose. On the other side of the flex hose, we'll continue on with that other gasket. Line it up with the caliper, put it in place, and go ahead and snug it up. We'll start this in by hand. Once it's bottomed out, you can torque that to 25 foot-pounds. Confirm everything's secured properly. Then go ahead and clean up your mess. Make your way back into the passenger compartment and remove the bar from your brake pedal. Now let's make our way under the hood. Along the driver's side firewall, you're going to find your brake fluid master cylinder. It's important to make sure that you check that fluid level. We'll open up the cover, check the seal, make sure it's not damaged in any way. Now we can check the fluid level. Looking down inside here, you want to make sure you do have fluid, at least up to this area. If it looks like it's a little low, go ahead and top it off with some brand new .3 or .4 brake fluid. Once you've done so, we're going to leave the cover off of here. Make sure no moisture or debris make its way in here. Back down at the bleeder screw, we're going to open this up and allow the brake fluid to start trickling down through the brand new flex hose and out through the caliper. You might find that you get a whole bunch of little air bubbles during this process. If your fluid does not trickle out of the bleeder screw, completely unscrew it from the caliper. You should find down along this area where it goes into the caliper a small hole. It's common for the port that goes between that small hole and the upper hole to be clogged with debris. Go ahead and clean it out if that's the case. Once you've done so, go ahead and put this right back in here and we'll continue waiting for fluid to come out. This is looking good now. We'll shake that flex hose around. Just try to push out any air that we can from inside this area. Once you have a steady trickle of fluid coming out of the fitting, go ahead and close it off. Let's make sure we top off that brake fluid. We'll close the cap, and then we can continue with a manual bleed. To perform a manual brake bleed, it's easiest having a second person inside of the passenger compartment. That person will pump up the brake pedal until it's nice and firm, typically approximately 3 pushes. They'll let me know that they're holding the brake pedal, open up the bleeder screw. We're going to watch for fluid and potentially air making its way out of the braking system. Go ahead and close off that bleeder screw, tell them to pump it a couple more times and hold it. Once again, we'll be paying attention for fluid coming out. We need to continue this process until there's no air bubbles coming out of the brake fluid system. Go ahead and pump up that brake pedal, please. Holding. We have our collection bucket under this area so we can recycle the fluid properly. That one looked good right there. I didn't see any air, but let's go ahead and pump it up again. That's twice with no air. Let's do it one more time. Perfect. Now we pumped that several times and we had no air coming out of the brake system. That's a good sign. Let's continue on by cleaning up our mess and checking that master cylinder fluid level. Let's get that protective cover on there. Just top off that fluid. Reinstall your fluid cover. Ensure that it is secured properly so no moisture or debris make its way inside. Confirm everything is nice and tight inside of the wheel well. Once you've done that, we'll continue on by reinstalling the wheel. Start on each of your 19mm lug nuts. We'll bottom them out, get the wheel back on the ground, and torque each one of these lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. With the wheel safely on the ground, torque these in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay friend, we showed you how to install the front brake hose on your vehicle. Hop in the passenger compartment and pump up that brake pedal till it's nice and firm. After that, take it for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.